Hello viewers, today we are celebrating the World Water Day. As you are all aware, this day is celebrated every year since 1993 on March 22nd, that is today, under the aegis of an UN agency, that is UNESCO. The main aim of this event is to focus on the importance of fresh water on this planet. This day also helps us to raise an awareness of over 2.5 billion people who are living a subhuman existence without any access to safe water. The theme on this year's World Water Day is making the invisible visible. Let me start today's interaction with a message from Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, on the occasion of the World Water Day. And I quote, "In the global water cycle, groundwater is indispensable but often overlooked. This hidden treasure, which with pools beneath our feet, accounts for around 99% of all liquid fresh water on earth. Not only is it essential for all life, it also performs valuable ecosystem services. Indeed, groundwater currently accounts for 49% of all water used for domestic purposes and around 25% of all water used for irrigation. Nearly 50% of the world's urban population depends on groundwater sources. Aquifers are also connected to rivers, lakes, and wetlands. As the planet adapts to a changing climate and rising population, groundwater will play an essential role in meeting the growing demand for food and drinking water. Yet, this essential resource faces serious risks, including inadequate protection and sometimes irreversible proportion. For all these reasons, on World Water Day 2022, UNESCO is celebrating this essential resource because better protecting and managing groundwater is our collective responsibility and in our collective interest. And this year, with the latest edition of the UN World Development Programme report released on World Water Day, we are shining a spotlight on groundwater, underlining its roles, benefits, challenges, and opportunities. In a world of ever-growing demand, where surface water resources are increasingly scarce and under more and more stress, the value of groundwater needs to be recognized by everyone, and UNESCO is fully committed to this goal." Unquote. So it's time to give water a second thought. Are you aware that your body is 60% water? 70% of your brain is water, and 80% of your blood is water. And you're aware that we can go without food for a month. But can we survive without water? No, we cannot survive without water even for 1 week. So there is a popular saying, "Thousands have lived without love, not one without water." So water is so important. And when we view the outer space, our planet Earth seems beautiful with blue hues of oceans and brownish landmass, but actually we live in a thirsty world. This is how the Earth looks from a space, but it is very thirsty. Why so? Because the amount of water which is available as fresh water is only 3%. Rest of the water is trapped in glaciers and ice caps and also in oceans. So you can see the most of the water is in form of ice. And you will be surprised to know that the amount of water which existed on Earth millions of years ago is that is the amount which is available today. But still we say that the Earth is thirsty. Why so? Because when we compare the ratio of water on land and oceans, we find that 70% of water is available in oceans and only 30% is on land. So that means fresh water is only 3% of the planet's water. And of this 3%, 70% is in form of ice in the polar caps and glaciers, and 29% is underground. Fresh water that is readily available as rivers, lakes and reservoirs amounts to just 1%. So if you look at the composition of planet's water, what we find that 97% of water is present in oceans and only 3% is fresh water, from which less than 1% is present in rivers and lakes. 20%, little higher than 20% is the groundwater, and 70% is present in polar ice caps and glaciers. This reminds me of a famous couplet from Ancient Mariner written by Coleridge, that water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. So now let us see what is the hydrological cycle, or what is the water cycle, and how does water rotate in the universe or in the atmosphere. So in the hydrological cycle, water moves between rivers, lakes, oceans and the atmosphere, while a large percentage remains in underground aquifers. So what we see that when the water goes up in the air, it condenses and it comes down as rains. And this water is collected in rivers and lakes. From there, it percolates into the deep surface, into the deep earth, layers of the earth, where it is stored as renewable aquifer. The plants take up this water and they give it back to the atmosphere by the process of evaporation and transpiration. And again, this water comes back on the earth in form of rainwater. So the next point, this is how the water is rotating. The availability of fresh water is very unequally distributed geographically. A region or country is said to be experiencing water stress when the annual water supplies fall below 1700 cubic meters per person per year. A region or country is said to be under water scarcity when supplies fall below 1000 cubic meters per person. We also talk about absolute water scarcity when the supplies drop below 500 cubic meters per person per year. That means if the water levels are below 17,000 cubic meters per person per year, it is known as water stress. Less than 1000 units, it is water scarcity, and less than 500 cubic meters per person per year, it is absolute water scarcity. Here you can see on your screens map of the earth. And what do we find? That the regions which are shown in blue and dark blue, these are the regions which are rich in water. But we have to concentrate on the regions which are shown by yellow, orange and brown, that is light brown and dark brown. These are the regions where there is scarcity of water. And we find that in India also there is water deficiency. Some areas of Africa and Asia are also poor in water. So what are the types of water that are available? We have three types of water, that is blue water, green water and grey water. What are these waters? When we talk of blue water, we are talking of the water which can be withdrawn from water stocks including lakes, reservoirs and groundwater aquifers for human activities, such as for irrigation, industry and domestic use. When we talk of green water is the water that exists in natural ecosystems as clouds, mist, rain, soils and plants, and which is indirectly available to human beings. The last one is the grey water. As the term grey indicates, this is fresh water which is needed to dilute and flush away the pollutants that result from human activities. And what are these human activities? We are using excess of fertilizers and pesticides to increase our agricultural yields. We have industrial effluents, and we are also using water for sanitation. So there are three types of water, or we can say we can divide water into three categories on the basis of the uses. Now these are three types of uses, but we are concerned with fresh water. So when we talk of fresh water, that is the concentration of the fresh water in hydrosphere, and how long will it take to circulate. We find that the maximum amount of water is present in form of ice glaciers and ice caps, and it takes nearly 8,000 years to recycle, or that means to replenish this water. Then the amount of water in rivers is very less. It is just 1200 liters. So and it takes very less time to circulate this water. It just takes 11.3 days to circulate this water. But what we are concerned with is groundwater. Groundwater is at the second category, that its amount is fairly good. But the worry here is it takes 280 years to replenish this groundwater. So supposing that we deplete water today, imagine, then the water will be replenished after 280 years. That is, the life on earth will be possible only after 280 years. So that is why we say that groundwater is very important. And what is this groundwater? Groundwater is the water found in the pores of soil and sediments, plus narrow fractures in bedrock. Groundwater is the largest reservoir of fresh water that is readily available to humans. Groundwater is that water that seeps through rocks and soil and is stored below the ground. The rocks in which groundwater is stored are called aquifers. Aquifers are typically made up of gravel, sand, sandstone, or limestone. So let us see what is the distribution of groundwater. So as you can see on your screens, we have two layers, two zones of groundwater. One is the zone of aeration, which is composed of the soil moisture and the capillary section, which makes the zone of aeration. And this extends above the water table. And water table is the zone of saturation. That it is a zone where all the open spaces and sediments and rocks are totally filled with water. So as you can see on your screens again, that is the aeration zone. The sand particles are partially filled with water. Whereas when we go on to the saturation zone, all the soil particles are filled with water. And where this ends, where the saturation zone ends, this is the water table. So water within the pores in the earth is called groundwater. And water table is the upper limit of the zone of saturation. So this is what you can see here. That is, this is the general structure of the earth. And what we see, that under normal circumstances, the water table is here. But if we use too much of water, the water table goes down and there is scarcity of water. So when we drill wells, we have to ensure that there is a continuous supply of water. A well must penetrate below the water table. And when we do too much of pumping, or we withdraw too much of water from the wells, it will cause the lowering of the water table. And when there is lowering of the water table, there will be cone of depression in the water table. So as you can see on your screens again, I have shown you a figure in which this is the normal circumstances. That is when we are not withdrawing too much of water from the water table. So here the well is going up till the water table and it can withdraw water. But when excessive water is drained, then what we find that this layer, this water level drops down. And when this water level drops down, there is cone of depression. And now the well will not reach the water table and it will not be able to make water accessible to people. So here you can again see that when millions of people well to draw water, where there is scarcity of water, what do we find? That the water table goes down, and a result of which there is scarcity of water. So of all the water that is withdrawn for human activities, 70% is used for agriculture, primarily to irrigate crops, 19% is used for industry, and 11% for municipal and domestic uses. The share of water for agricultural uses can be as high as 95% as in Vietnam and as low as 0.3% as in Germany. So on this figure, you can see the water consumption per capita. So what we find that Turkmenistan, that is, it is using 94% of water, whereas India is also not far behind. It is using 90%, and when we talk of Germany, it is using 0.3%. So this table shows per capita consumption of water by different countries. So virtual water is the amount of water that is embedded in goods or services accounting for all of the water used as input at every step of production process, either for agricultural goods, industrial goods or services. So we say the total amount of water that we are going to use for, say, producing a product is known as virtual water. And this virtual water is made up of all the three types of waters which I have discussed earlier, that is green water, blue water and grey water. And the amount that we are using, you can see that if we are processing 70 grams of tomato, the amount of water, virtual water used will be 13 liters. Whereas when we prepare a hamburger, there the water used will be that of 2,400 liters. And if we prepare a pair of shoes, the water content will be very high. Do you know there is a term as a water footprint, just as we have carbon footprints. Carbon footprints is the measure of the carbon released in the atmosphere. So what is this water footprint? This is very interesting. Water footprint is the amount of virtual water that we used for different purposes. That is, it will give us what is our consumption pattern. And how do we calculate this? This can be calculated by taking direct water use plus virtual water of all goods and services. And on the basis of this, it has been calculated that the average person living in US consumes about 2,220 gallons of water a day. And you will be surprised that diet makes a big difference. A vegetarian water footprint can be less than 50% of a meat eater's footprint. So it's a very good idea now people are becoming vegetarian and vegan. So water consumption depends on lifestyle, including diet. That is, meat eater will consume 2,647 gallons of water per day. A vegetarian uses 1,266 gallons per day. A vegan uses 1,114 gallons per day. So till now I've told you what is water table, what do we need by groundwater, what is the importance of groundwater, what is the distribution of groundwater in the world, and what is the consumption by the population of different countries. In the next lecture, now second part of the lecture, we shall be discussing why is there this scarcity of water and how can we conserve water. Thank you.